This is Land of Fabula, Psalm 91. It's 16 verses. The psalm just before it was from the gloomy point of view of a person alienated from God. This will be the opposite view. This describes someone who dwells in the secret place of the Most High in verse 1, who says of Yahweh, He's my refuge and fortress, my God in whom I trust, in verse 2, who has made Yahweh his refuge and the Most High his dwelling place, in verse 9, and has set his love on God, knows his name, and calls on him, in verses 14 and 15. Verse 1, He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of Yahweh, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers. Under His wings you will take refuge. His faithfulness is your shield and rampart. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked, because you have made Yahweh your refuge and the Most High your dwelling place. No evil shall happen to you, neither shall any plague come near your dwelling. For He will put His angels in charge of you to guard you in all your ways. They will bear you up in their hands, so that you won't dash your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and cobra. You will trample the young lion and the serpent underfoot. Comment now, God speaking, verse 14. Because He has set His love on me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high because he has known my name. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. I will satisfy him with long life and show him my salvation. Comment, that's the end of the psalm. There's no mention of the author. It's a celebratory psalm that God will protect and preserve in every circumstance. It agrees with what Jesus said, quote, Nothing will in any way hurt you, Luke 10:19. Nothing will hurt us in this psalm. Now someone will say that's ridiculous on the face of it. Paul said 5 times from the Jews I received 40 stripes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I suffered shipwreck. I've been a day and night in the deep. I've been in travels often, perils of rivers, perils of robbers, perils from my countrymen, perils from the Gentiles, perils in the city, perils in the wilderness, perils in the sea, perils among false brothers, in labor and travail, in sleeplessness often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, and in cold and nakedness, 2 Corinthians 11:24-27. And from what we hear, Caesar finally killed him. Yes, but until his death, God led him and protected him through all those things and let no harm come to him. Still taking Paul as an example, how is it that 1,000 could fall at his side, 10,000 at his right hand, but it wouldn't come near him as the psalm claims? He fell. How is it that supposedly he would trample on the young lion and cobra as the psalm says, but he was the one who was trampled? If this psalm is true that nothing will harm us, how is it that Paul wrote exactly the opposite, quote, For your sake we're killed all day long, we're accounted as sheep for the slaughter, Romans 8:36. And how did Jesus say nothing will in any way hurt you, being that Jesus was crucified? Okay, then what about all that? Obviously, Christians sometimes fall to pestilence and are destroyed at noonday, contrary to verse 6, and they get shot through with arrows, contrary to verse 5. They die in battle, contrary to verse 7, and they dash their feet on stones, contrary to verse 12. And it's not enough of an explanation to say they didn't have enough faith. It's insulting to say they should have trusted more or prayed harder, or to say if they were better Christians it wouldn't have happened. Paul was as good a Christian as any of us could hope to be, and it happened to him. So what do we make of it? This psalm isn't asking us to believe the unbelievable. It's asking us to believe that there's no end to the Christian life, for one. It's asking us to believe what Jesus said, quote, If anyone keeps my word, he shall never taste death, John 8:52. We are indestructible because there's a resurrection to eternal life, John 5:29, and because our bodies will be raised, 1 Corinthians 15:52. That's one sense in which we're indestructible. The other sense is that many times God does protect us. How often have we come close to disaster and God prevented it? How many times did angels protect us? More than we know. So how do we obtain that kind of confidence? Answering strictly from this psalm, it's again by dwelling in the secret place of the Most High and resting in the shadow of the Almighty in verse 1, by making Yahweh our refuge and the Most High our dwelling place in verse 9, by setting our love on God, knowing His name, and calling on Him in verses 14 and 15. In short, by being intimate with Him. Psalm 92 is next.